Okay, well, we still have people coming in, but I want to respect everybody's time today, so we're going to get started. I'm Marilyn Wilson, president of RE Technology, and I am actually thrilled to introduce our speaker today. I'm going to let him do the honors, but I'll suffice it to say he is truly one of the visionaries and leaders as to where, not where AI is today, but where it's going to be going in 3, 5, 10, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, 10 years, right, Franz? You never know with AI, it goes quickly. So I'd love to turn it over to you. If anybody has any questions for us, feel free to drop them down in the chat, and I will pose them to Bron so we can get his full intelligence as much as we can get, because I'm telling you, you guys are going to love this. It's going to be really fun. So Bronze, take it away.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today, and love to engage with you after this talk, and even one-on-one. I can leave you my email if you guys want to follow up with any specific questions. So my name is Larson. I formerly am a applied mathematician with a PhD in artificial intelligence. And I've worked in the space for about 20 years now, and really cross-discipline, both commercial and government with both commercial and government organizations, and really almost AI is applicable to almost every discipline. So I've worked in genetics, the video game industry, health and fitness, radar, EOIR communications, chemistry, you name it, and AI has an application in that space. I've been at Dell for about 5 years now. Spent the first couple of years as the AI strategy lead, and most recently I've been leading the AI ecosystems and looking at really how we can improve our partner offerings, working with our team members. Today, I was going to talk about the kind of future of AI, but before I do that, I just wanted to touch really briefly on a snapshot of what AI at Dell means today, and it'll help kind of level set and ground what Dell is currently doing before I turn to where we kind of view AI going and what we're doing to prepare for that. So let's jump into this first part. So, AI is kind of a horizontal. It's not only something that affects a lot of other disciplines, it's actually affected by them. In particular, these areas, data management, edge processing, communications like 5G, security. AI helps enhance all of those offerings, but it also is affected by it. Now, in the office of the CTO, we focus on all of these different areas. I have been leading the AI part of it for the last few years now, and we have AI pretty much parsed into kind of 3 broad categories. You might have seen these before. They're not just unique to Dell. We call them AI in, on, and for. AI in is where we put AI into our products. The customers don't necessarily know what's in there, but they benefit from having a product that maybe runs smoother, it runs more quietly, maybe it's cooler. Overall, it's going to make a product that maybe lasts longer, doesn't break as often, and gives the customer an overall better product. AI on, that's the type of solutions that we build to allow our customers to enable their AI, realize their AI dreams on our hardware. So it can be everything from data management tools to accelerator enablement. And it really is, where the experts come to us and say, this is what I'm looking for, and we allow them to do the actual research for their particular application. AI 4, we're not just sellers of AI, we are also consumers. So AI 4 is what we do for us to make our company run more efficiently and better. And examples here might be, besides, marketing, predictive marketing trends, we also do things like predictive maintenance. So we're able to identify when we think our products that are out there in the wild are going to fail and what type of failures they're going to be, so we can properly stock our repair rooms and make sure that when clients actually have problems, we're able to fix those problems as efficiently as possible. Again, often customers don't know that AI is under the hood driving these decisions and improving our processes, but they hopefully benefit from a much better and cleaner run company and experience working with Dell. At any given moment, we've got about 2,000 different AI, I'll say, experts within the company, more that have cursory knowledge of AI. And at any given point, we have a couple hundred different projects. When I took a snapshot here, we had a little over 500 different AI projects going on at that time. I think most recent snapshot was closer to 900 AI projects, and they're spread around those AI in, on, and for applications for eventual products and services that we can hopefully improve the relationship for our customers with Dell. We work in almost every discipline, from manufacturing, healthcare, defense, media, entertainment, retail, and we actually work with a quite diverse type of customer as well, those that are very sophisticated and those that aren't. And these are two bookend examples to kind of highlight that. This was actually a customer, it was a country wanted to improve their performance in the Olympics. And so they wanted to have a sports data analytics lab built with edge devices all around the world so that they could actually travel with their athletes wherever they're training and capture video of their athletes. For instance, here in this, the crew, the rowing, we had worked with them to develop drone capture systems that would fly alongside the athletes and be able to capture their movements, which could be turned into measurements and actually analytics performed on it to see if they could improve, give advice to their athletes to improve their overall performance. So this was an AI on solution. We didn't do the analytics. We actually provide all the hardware, the ability to have edge devices out there capturing data, have that synced up with a core area where all the analytics would be computed and compared for all their athletes worldwide. And again, these were experts who knew exactly what they wanted, and we worked with them to make sure we could build that for them. At the other end of the spectrum, this was a customer who didn't know how to spell AI and didn't want to know how to spell AI. They had a problem with these self-checkouts. They're a global company, and they had a problem where people were taking a SKU, a product that was cheap, like a pack of gum, and they were putting the barcode, holding it over a more expensive item like a bottle of wine so they could, you know, check out and get a bottle of wine for the price of a pack of gum. So we put in a system there where we added cameras, we added entire AI system for doing the object recognition. And so we could say, hey, that's a bottle of wine. We can see it, the computer vision part of it. And yet it would not correlate with the barcode SKU of a pack of gum, and we would raise an alert there. This was a global system. It had the ability to, we deployed built the AI model for them, built the hardware integrated into these kiosks that are at the self-checkouts, and enabled easy ability to constantly upgrade the models as their products kind of change over time.
Hey, Bronze, we have a question for you.
Yeah.
For the layperson, what is an edge device?
Oh, well, that would just, if you think about, you can do AI not at a main data center. Imagine you wanted to use a cell phone and there was an AI system in there that allowed you to be out in the field, out in the wild, the ability to actually use the product kind of disconnected in some sense, out at the edge of where the data is being collected. So rather than moving data back to a central core area where it's all computed, which can be great for training models, it's usually where you're inferencing, you're actually using the model to make a decision at that spot. So it's where the data is consumed. You're actually ingesting that data, like on a phone, taking a picture, and then you're actually processing information in that picture right there at the edge.
Gotcha. So
Hopefully
the bicyclist is on the bicycle, that's that edge. A realtor might be in a house, that would be their edge. Similar kind of. Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely. Yeah. So the thing about a CTO's office, our charter really is a little different than the rest of the company. We're not looking for where is AI now. We're really looking to the future. And so when I approach this problem, and the future is potentially 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out, our CTO, John Rose, he often says, I don't want to miss the next internet. I want to understand the next big thing that's coming, the changes that are on the horizon, so that we can either prepare for disruption or, even better, maybe start working now to get out ahead of that change and be part of the change. So when I was looking at this problem for AI, I took a three-pronged approach. I said, well, what's going to be the driving force? Is it going to be the algorithms, the intelligence, what the thing can do? Is that going to change? Is there something wrong with AI today that requires a new generation of algorithms to overcome these obstacles? And if so, then that's going to drive the future, with then the hardware and the tooling kind of following to enable these algorithms. On the other hand, sometimes it's not that. It could be that there's some sort of advancement in compute, a new device which is just so advanced that you have to actually change the algorithms and the intelligence to make use of it. Maybe the algorithms don't even exist yet. An example of that is the GPU space, when we realize that these are little parallel computers that could be used for doing a lot of heavy compute at the edge because they're cheap and small and fast. We had to actually redesign a lot of the algorithms to make use of this new hardware. So sometimes it's a hardware advancement that's the driving force, and then the algorithms and the tooling. On the other hand, sometimes it's something that's a little bit squishier. I call it the make it easy approach, and that's where maybe there's just something that resonates so well with customers. It's not necessarily the best intelligence or best algorithms. It's not necessarily the fastest, but it sure is easy to use, or something about it. It's an intangible that makes people just, really rally around this particular tool. And therefore that ends up, that way they use it ends up being the driving force for where AI is going. I kind of maybe throw the hyperscalers, Microsoft, Amazon, Google in that bin, because if you ever use some of their AI tools, they are fantastic. I mean, in terms of ease of use, but they are not the best algorithms in terms of intelligence they give you. They are not the fastest by any means. But oh my gosh, they're easy to use. My 11-year-old daughter actually trained up a model for a school project, elementary school project, last year using some of these hyperscaler tools that are out there. They're really easy to use. But the thing I'm going to talk about today is what I believe is going to be the driving force for change, and it really is the algorithms. Now, I'm not going to dive into the math behind it, but really kind of the functionality and why do we need something new? What's wrong with the intelligence? Isn't AI the cat's meow today? Isn't it the most incredible technology? And it is fantastic, but it's got a lot of warts, a lot of challenges that are causing some issues. And therefore, there are new algorithms coming to mind to overcome these. And I want to talk about what those are. Start off with the driving forces for what's kind of the challenges facing today. What do these new algorithms overcome? And what is the impact to the world when these kind of become sort of ubiquitous and everywhere? I call that the third wave of AI. I have this little banner here with first wave, second wave, third wave. We're currently in the second wave right now. That's where you hear about deep learning, deep fakes, neural networks. That's the type of algorithms in ChatGPT and Gen AI. It's all falls still into this second wave, which is all based on statistics. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, what some of those problems facing those methodologies are and what this third wave actually is all about. So is this just me? Am I just, Bronze is telling you this is the answer and, that really there's not a problem with it? Well, not necessarily. Some of the experts that I lean on heavily, one of them is DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. Now, for those of you who don't know DARPA, they are the largest venture capitalist firm on the planet. The yearly budgets are multi-billion. In the public space, the classified space is virtually unlimited. But they've been, since 1960, they have been the de facto leading investor and developer of AI. Almost every single advancement in AI has come and has from DARPA or had its roots in DARPA. And one of the offices there is called I2O, and a recent director was asked, so, as the de facto leader in AI and the biggest funder of AI, what do you think of it? And his comeback was, well, AI is not that intelligent. Matter of fact, it's really just a bunch of spreadsheets. And I love that second quote. I use it quite often. Sometimes if people, get a little fearful of AI, they think the rise of machines, Skynet's going to come, every job's going to be taken. And I say, really, you think that Microsoft Excel is going to take over the world? And it kind of causes people to pause and scratch their head, look at me funny. And then it often allows us to have a little more of a grounded conversation about really what AI is and what some of the challenges facing it are. But it's not just DARPA. There are some other leaders out there like Geoffrey Hinton. He's known as the godfather of deep learning, all the deep fakes, everything you see out there. This is the guy who really championed all of that and developed it. And he was asked, what's the future of AI? Well, my view is throw it all away and start over. And again, so, there's some challenges out there that a lot of the experts sort of are aware of and are working on. Even some of the general purpose prognosticators, like Gartner, if you ever looked at they put out these hype cycles where they kind of talk about technology that's rising up in terms of public interest and then falling down as it falls out of favor and then sort of stabilizing. And if you look at, this is one of them they had on algorithms out there, and look at all the words. I mean, deep learning, natural language processing, machine learning, chatbots, computer vision, autonomous vehicles, semantic search, even generative AI. And it's all on this cliff about to fall into this trough of disillusionment as the hype sort of got ahead of the actual technology. So I'm going to skip this one here. So what is it? Why are there these opinions? Why sort of are there challenges out there? What are these warts? I'm going to keep these very high level, but one of the problems facing, the biggest problem facing the second wave of AI, all these methodologies that you see about in the news right now, is the fact that they're non-adaptive. And what that means is if you trained up a model to recognize a cat and a dog, it might be able to do a pretty good job of that. But now you show it a fish and it doesn't know what to do. Well, that's a real challenge. I mean, imagine autonomous cars are out there driving around and you don't recognize something because you just didn't train up on it. Humans have no problem doing that. I mean, I could train up on, I mean, if I know what a ball is, it doesn't matter if it's a baseball or a soccer ball, but neural nets, if they haven't trained up, if they only trained up on baseballs, they might have trouble recognizing a soccer ball. And this is actually a challenge. General Motors actually, in the autonomous driving world, they just got out of it after multi-billion-dollar investment because they couldn't actually make a system that was able to meet the requirements out there. In especially California was the kind of the nail in the coffin, and they realized they were so far off. Autonomous driving isn't close to human driving, and so they actually pulled out. Another one, I have another chart on this, so I'll kind of skip over this quickly, but it kind of surprises people. We're running out of data. It kind of shocks people to think, what do you mean? There's more data than ever. Well, there is more data than ever. Unfortunately, there's not more information in that data. The data is just kind of all the same. And I got a chart to go into this. But the thing about neural nets and second wave AI is they're data hungry. They just need more and more data. I mean, ChatGPT, I think, has 100 trillion parameters it needs to kind of tune. Well, there's no more data to make that really work very well. So you're starting to see even decreased performance in the next each of these generations of ChatGPT. Surprisingly, they're very high error rates using the current. And what happens there is, maybe a system is good enough to recommend a Netflix movie. 10% error rate, 20% error rate, meaning, 1 out of every 10, 1 out of every 5 things is wrong. I think even ChatGPT, there's an article I read recently, they were praising it for detecting cancer in 70% of the cases. And I'm thinking 3 out of 10 times it got it wrong. Wow, that's a really horrible error rate. And most error rates for real systems have to be very, very small, not like 10%, but like 0.0000001%. And neural nets have a real hard time getting there. Again, not a problem for maybe recommending Netflix movies. So what if you get it wrong? The person watches it and says, it was okay. It wasn't my favorite. But if you're talking about like autonomous driving or detecting cancer, there's most real applications out there requiring incredibly low false alarm rates. And it's a challenge with neural nets. You've read about this unexplainability. You probably see it actually demonstrated with things like ChatGPT if you ever use it, where it gives an answer and it's confident. It says, I got an example later on, how many words are in this sentence? And it says, there are 10 words in this sentence. Well, it's wrong, but it's really confident. And there's really no way to dive into these things and make them explainable. They're just these huge black boxes that are incredibly complex. And as a mathematician, that one really irks me because I like to understand anytime I write an algorithm or put together a solution, I like to know where every single bit goes through that system. And we are clueless. Once you design it, it's just, you kind of throw caution to the wind and hope it works. And when it doesn't work, you don't necessarily always know when that fails. And that can be quite dangerous. If you ever, you see a lot about ethics. I actually was kind of one of the main instigators for building the AI ethics policy at Dell. And that's great, but it's getting harder and harder to stay compliant. We actually built an entire system within our company that we pushed out over the entire company. And we found out after it was deployed that it failed on, one rule in GDPR, and we had to pull it back. So even Dell, with our team's lawyers trying to track all the legal changes and governance changes that are happening around the world, it's tough for us. And so it's getting really, really hard to deal with these kind of privacy issues. And those are very unique to this current wave of AI, the second wave of AI that we're in right now. The compute is having trouble keeping up with the data. You probably see this quite a bit. Sustainability. I mean, they're saying ChatGPT with their 100 trillion parameters, very soon could take all the power on Earth. And you can see the sustainability, the impact on environment that massive GPU farms and GPU servers are causing, and it's getting worse. So there is a problem as they try to feed more data into these things that they also need more compute, and it is just, man, it's an environmental killer. So it's a problem. Also, just the complexity of these things. They're so hard to understand that you really do need, AI experts and not just a kid coming out of college with a bachelor's degree. I mean, really, you need teams of PhDs, and they're hard to come by. But the biggest, I'd say, reason why why we keep moving to something new is current AI is kind of like a spreadsheet, a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. It's not a human. Even though you see papers out there showing brains and souls and all this stuff and robots, it's not. It's far, far. It's a very simple lookup table technology, and that's not artificial general intelligence, which is more human-like. And so until we get there, there's going to be a lot of investment to try to, kind of move beyond where we are right now. And so that's the motivation for why a new approach is needed. I'm just going to touch again on this data one because it's kind of interesting. A lot of people are shocked by it. There's a simple cartoon example here, but on the x-axis, you have the amount of data. So more data moving to the right, and the AI performance is on the y-axis there going up, meaning the higher you go, the higher performance. And what that curve shows is it's kind of flattening out. You're pumping more and more data into these systems, and you're just not getting much more performance. I was actually out at the with the intelligence community at a meeting, and they gather all the data on Earth, everything. I mean, not a single bit is created that they don't actually collect. And they said they're having this diminishing return problem. And they kind of use this example of Facebook. They said, 10 years ago, Facebook was dominated by soccer moms posting pictures of their kids. Well, 10 years later, Facebook is dominated by soccer moms posting pictures of their kids. Lots more data, but it's the same stuff. Humans are kind of creatures of habit. We just sort of produce the same data over and over and over, generation after generation. And so the more complex you make these systems, the more data they need, but it's not more data they need, it's more content, new content, and it's just not in there. So it's a problem facing the world right now. I was actually at the San Diego Supercomputer Center not that long ago at a talk, and they were talking about the next gen ChatGPT and the beyond 100 trillion features, and a big laugh kind of echoed throughout the audience. And then the speaker said, I know, where are they going to get the information to make that thing work? So it's a known problem that's out there. More data is being produced, just not more information. And to drive that point home, this is an example of something I was involved with. It was submarine detection programs with the US government. And two approaches. One was a neural net approach. Let's put billions of cheap biodegradable sensors. Let's just seed the ocean. So the whole ocean has these little tiny sensors all over the place gathering data, lots of data, and we'll use neural nets to make sense of all that data. The other was, no, let's build a single sensor, perfectly designed, new algorithms, new hardware, specifically designed for this problem. And I can tell you that first program no longer exists, and the second one's going strong. So more bad data doesn't increase AI performance. And so it's, again, a real challenge facing the neural net approaches we use today, which are data hungry, and there just isn't more data out there. So we're sort of reaching a limit of what we can do with current AI. I kind of, to bring some of these points home that I had on that one chart with all those little icons, this is just an actual example of how these current methods are statistically impressive. That's why you see them on the internet all the time, but they're individually unreliable. And this was actually a real example. I ran a drone lab for a few years. And again, we were looking at drone swarms, how they could operate together and fly. And I'd have these really low false alarm rates. I mean, these things would look at trees and leaves and track objects, and unbelievable, and sensors all around them. And the false alarm rates might be 1 in a billion. But the problem was with all those sensors and all those flights and so many decisions having to be made, that there would be 1 billion decisions made every time I'd fly a swarm. And therefore I'd hit that false alarm, which would be a catastrophic failure. And one drone might crash into another and the whole swarm would fall apart. Now, I had great videos that I was able to show of these swarms tracking objects and people through forests and just doing amazing things, but they always ended in a crash and didn't end up being a deployed system. So again, this is just a challenge facing neural nets, where you see a lot of stuff online that looks really scary and impressive, but when you kind of get down to the nuts and bolts of it, the error rates are just, they're not within reason. This is within reasonable numbers to be able to actually deploy a system. And that's what's happened with like GM and the auto industry, and also the whole drone business. Remember when they were going to deliver all of our packages and they just couldn't meet the safety or fidelity requirements for a real system to be deployed. Another thing is they're easily confused. This is a picture on the left. It was a neural net trained up to recognize just car logos. Great, 100% performance. And then it rained. and a few water drops got off it. It got on these logos and it completely failed. That's really scary to have that level of volatility that could cause these things to fall apart with just these little minor changes. So, it's a really challenging problem out there. But the biggest I'm going to come back to was the first issue I brought up, first icon on that previous page, that non-adaptability, the ability to not abstract to something they haven't seen before and not reason. And so just the example here is, you might be able to train up a neural net to recognize dogs in washing machines, but they can't kind of abstract and create new things and say, I wonder if that dog could go in the washing machine, and then they can't reason and say, that'd be a bad idea. So that's really the biggest kind of hindrance that is very a human characteristic, which is not captured at all by current AI. So when you try to look at how to do this, what we realized was human learning is different. Neural nets are literally modeling the human brain, the connections in the brain. Well, that is modeling actually how those connections came about. How did we evolve over 20 million years? That's not what learning is. And an example I'll give is I could teach a dog or a kid something new one time. They don't need millions and millions of samples to learn something. Neural nets do. I need to show it a million pictures or a billion pictures of a ball for it to recognize a ball well. But a kid, I could draw a letter K for the first time to show a kid. That kid's going to know that letter K for the rest of their life, whether it's red, green, blue, fat, skinny, Times New Roman, Arial font, upside down, flip left, right, even if a cloud in the sky looks like the letter K. And then if I then showed him a letter P and didn't describe what it was, the kid would probably say, I don't know what that is. I've never seen it, but I bet it's part of that alphabet that represents a sound. So human learning is completely different from neural nets. If neural nets were how if we behave like neural nets, where neural nets, every time you see something new, you have to add the data, kill it, retrain it, and then you get a brand new model. That would be like us seeing something new and our brain dissolves, and then 20 million years later, it evolves again to recognize that new object. And then we look somewhere else and we see something new and our brain dissolves again in 20 million years. We are not a good model in the sense of our brain being the right approach to neural nets. So they are fundamentally flawed. And that's why the shift went from, rather than modeling the brain architecture, instead, let's model how we learn. We only need one thing to learn for the rest of our life and abstract to new stuff. And that abstraction, creativity, that is such a human characteristic. We created Pegasuses and unicorns. They don't exist. We didn't have to see one to create it. J.K. Rowling didn't have to attend a school of magicians in order to create Hogwarts. We are incredibly creative, incredibly inventive, stuff that doesn't exist in the world. And so learning and human nature is something completely different. And we are so far off from that with neural nets and the current type of AI that's out there. This, again, is part of the reason for something new. Now, so I'm going to skip over this right here and just jump to, is it real? Is third wave AI here? And the answer is yes. This is actually a system, a third wave AI system. It's currently owned by Abbott. It was developed originally by DARPA. I was part of the team that built this. But it's capable of detecting and classifying any new bacteria, virus, or toxin. And in bold letters there on the right, even if it's a newly emerging or bioengineered threat. Neural nets can only recognize things they've seen before. So if a new bug evolves, current systems would fail. We needed a third wave AI system that would say, I've never seen that thing before, but I think I know what it is, and I think I know the characteristics of it. So this was actually the first to detect SARS and classify it as a coronavirus. It didn't require any training data, which is a big leap from current AI that needs lots and lots of data, but it's aligned with that example of the little boy who, in the picture previously, where you show him one instantiation and it's able to abstract to all sorts of other alphabetical things. No training data was needed. This is something that is deployed around the world, air sampling, constantly kind of sucking in air, and being able to not only just classify, but be explainable in the sense that maybe if it's something new and it's never seen it before, it doesn't just go, aha, it's new. It says, oh, I know this bug is a member of this family, this genus, this species, but it's new, or it has this characteristic of, here's how virulent it is, here's the viral load, here's how transmissible it is, the ways that a human would describe it. So it's explainable, does not require any training data, and most importantly, it can detect things and see things and interpret things that it's never been exposed to before. And that is just a huge, huge leap ahead. This is another variation, I'll say, of it. It was a human-based version. So imagine there's an object like a pen here. I could analyze this pen with this system and tell you all the people that touched it. Well, up to 4 people based on the DNA that's on this left on the surface. It sloughs off when you touch an object, a doorknob, a mouse, a gas station pump. Again, no training data was needed because one, I wouldn't be able to get all the data of every human on Earth. But again, this system was capable of detecting and classifying any human on Earth, even if they have not yet been born. And so again, that ability to abstract, to detect people that are being born, constantly being born, or people that even died a long, long time ago that we don't necessarily, have access to their bodies anymore. This is something that is a third wave AI problem that we needed to solve. And the approaches that we today with neural nets, I mean, there is no database of all the humans on Earth that you could, and then a new person being born would not be able to be detected by a neural net based approach. So a third wave AI approach. So these systems exist. They're out there, they're in use, but they are sort of contained or confined to companies, organizations that have lots and lots of resources and money. Now, to kind of explain how they work, just at a high level, forget the thing up top there, but on the left, imagine each of these different surfaces is like a cube, and each surface represented a different feature. Like in the bug example, by bacteria or viruses, like one is how virulent it is, or maybe in a human example, maybe one of the surfaces describes your gender, another surface describes your ethnicity, and blah, blah, blah. So it's characteristics. Well, what third wave AI does, it's not exactly this, but I try to think about it. If you ever saw the Marvel movies, it was, I think, Endgame or Infinity Wars. There's a character named Doctor Strange. And at one point, there was a big defeat, and Doctor Strange was over in the corner shaking, and everyone was looking at him going, oh my gosh, what's he doing? He was in a trance. And basically, what he was doing was he came out of the trance and he said, I just looked at every single possible futuristic scenario, and I found one that works. Now, third wave AI has far more deep mathematics than what I just described, but in many ways, that's kind of the way that it works. It sort of looks at every possible human who could ever exist till the end of time, every possible mutation of a bug, every possible car danger, that a pothole, a new ball, a kid chasing a ball, whatever it is, something that maybe just has never been experienced before, and it's able to interpret it right there on the spot. So what will launch this? As I mentioned, these systems are out there, but they're kind of hidden away. They're not really everything you read about in the news right now. Everything's neural net, more data. And so what will launch it is generative AI, which is like you hear about ChatGPT. But the problem with, or what ChatGPT is facing right now, is they want to basically have everyone on Earth run an instance of it at the same time. So they're trying to kind of horizontally make ChatGPT useful everywhere. To run third wave AI and do that example, the Dr. Strange example, that means that at every decision, a car right now looking ahead in the road, right there, it's got to do generative AI vertically to hypothesize everything that could happen to that car out in front of it. And then a second later, if it's safe to move forward, it's got to stack up and run generative AI vertically again and again. So rather than just like Microsoft trying to get ChatGPT horizontally to run once in every household, this has to run stacked on top of each other. And that means generative AI needs to be run in massive, massive parallel amounts. And there does not exist a chip out there to do that right now. So really the advancement will be a hardware advancement, and it's a chip which is sort of good enough to enable this in a way that is just a cheap chip that can be out there for everybody to use. Right now, it's kind of expensive hardware that's kind of driving the force here. Now, why do I think this is what's going to enable it? Well, because this is a deja vu moment for me. Many years ago, decades ago, I had a program which was basically to discover a cheap chip for doing neural nets, the second wave of AI. And what we realized was there's this mathematical operation called a convolution, which is core to neural nets. And you couldn't use just regular laptops and computers out there. You needed a little parallel computer, but it was so expensive to design these things. And we happened upon the GPU, the gaming chip. And when we looked at it, we said, holy moly, these things are totally dumb. They only do one thing. They do convolutions, they do it in parallel, and these things are dirt cheap. And so the one thing that neural nets needed the GPUs just happen to do. And these things are dirt cheap, low power. And we said, oh my gosh, we can start throwing these things into all sorts of edge devices, a missile flying, if you're talking about military applications, surveillance, whatever we're doing, we now had a cheap way to actually run neural nets. And just by comparison, at that time, before we realized this with the GPU, I tried to train up a little model using little tiny pictures, like 32 pixel squares. And I tried to train that up. It took 6 months to train up one model. That same model, after we had this program where we developed the first compiler, the first ability to get data in and out of these things, that thing ran in a couple seconds, trained up. So that was the real improvement that happened. And the two companies that we were working with on this, one was ATI, which became AMD, and the other was this little tiny company, penny stock company called NVIDIA, which is right now poised to be the biggest company in the world, the most potentially, right now until maybe Microsoft surpasses them. And so I'm in the same kind of deja vu moment right now where third wave AI has the ability to need, just like the second wave needed these convolutions in parallel, third wave AI needs generative AI to be done in parallel. And that chip is not quite in existence. It hasn't been identified, but whoever does, just like NVIDIA is poised to become the biggest company right now based on second wave AI, whoever does the third wave AI chip, they're going to basically be as well the biggest company. And I will say, use the word forever there at the tail end of right above those question marks. And the reason is because third wave AI, they're kind of, we call them forever models, because they are forever able to see the end of time, the Doctor Strange example. So there isn't a fourth wave of AI after this. So sort of the person or company that really develops this third wave AI chip that'll replace the second wave of AI, that's what's going to enable it, cause it to be just everywhere you turn. And I mean, there's already systems out there in the military that are using third wave AI. But what does this mean for the world? Well, if I mention some of the features of third wave AI is this paradigm shift, one of the biggest is the elimination of training data. Right now, companies think their data is their biggest asset. And they're right, based on neural nets and based on data analytics. The future doesn't require data. So all of a sudden, all the data management tools that are out there and companies that are building this, they go away. There's no training at all. So all the training and all the GPUs needed to train up, you don't need it because it's not the same type of training. Security and privacy, even those issues become minimized because you don't have data to protect anymore or maintain people's privacy, which of course affects AI ethics because AI ethics is often focused on privacy and security. So in many ways, AI ethics sort of goes away. And the GPU market gets sort of decimated because you don't need GPUs anymore. That's not the way that these things are going to operate. Storage, all the storage companies out there are going to be immensely affected because right now everyone's storing and collecting all their data. You don't need to. You basically have this system living out there at the edge and it just operates on the data right at the edge and throws it away. There's no data collection in the way that it actually operates. But the biggest is still this kind of universe of third wave AI applications that are sort of envisioned. You go to the internet and you see all the different things that people are sort of hyping up. But as I mentioned, you get nuts to bolts down in the weeds. They just aren't really realizable yet. They all become realizable. So kind of all those things that people are talking about as, what AI is going to go to, this is what's going to enable it. And I try to think about, like back in the 1980s, which was the first wave of AI, what that really enabled was the age of robotic process automation. Back in the 1980s, that was when we put robots everywhere. I mean, ATM machines in many ways are a little robot of a teller, and that's first wave AI. It's very simple rules that are able to repetitively do something. And that was what the first wave of AI was all about. And I try to think about what is the tagline for the third wave of AI. And I think it's this abstraction capability, the ability to see things that have never been seen before. And so I call the third wave of AI, what it enables is the age of innovation automation, because it's able to invent and create things that we've never seen before. And I got one more chart on this before I finish to kind of bring that to life. I was actually giving a talk up in Hollywood. I have a big conference every year on technology. I was one of the keynote speakers there. And as I headed up there, I got a call saying, hey, go to this other hotel. That was not where the conference was. And that was weird. And I get there and there's nobody there. And I finally find someone, they ushered me into a room and camera. And I actually gave my talk virtually. And what I didn't know was there was actually, this was during the writer's strike, and the writers were actually, I guess, hired people to like hurt us, the AI people, because that's one of their big things they were concerned about is AI could take away jobs. I didn't know that. So I just kind of gave my talk and along with a couple of other speakers that were there too. But the thing that was interesting is I watched the other speakers before me. They kept saying, don't worry, you're the artist, you're the artist. ChatGPT and generative AI is not going to take away the job. You're the creative one. And that's true. So this example here is kind of current AI. Current AI, let's say you use the 80s as your data set to train up everything. That's just the only universe that the AI system knew. Generative AI will allow you to produce new stuff. Like you could say, I want to have a picture with two palm trees, a girl in glasses, a sunset, but it's going to have the flavor of the 80s because that's all it knows. It can't jump out and create anything that it's never seen before. So I actually, as I watched all these speakers, I was kind of surprised they kept saying, don't worry, you're the creative one. I hadn't yet known what the issue was, and they were trying to temper fears. And I agree, yes, you are the creative one with current AI because all current Gen AI does is stylize. ChatGPT stylizes like a conversation. But what I finished with, this chart actually, I said with third wave AI, where right now you are the artist, with third wave AI, AI becomes the artist. And I kind of stepped in it. I didn't know the issue there, and I probably would have chosen my words better. But third wave AI, if you asked it to generate something new, even if the 80s were all, clean cropped hair and, Kurt Cobain had dirty, unbrushed hair and the clothes was all bright colors and Kurt Cobain had dirty, grungy earth tones and this music was all bright pop, major chords and, grunge was all minor chord and kind of gritty. It could never come out with that, where that's what third wave AI did. It's able to create things that the world has never seen before. So it is true innovation. And so that was kind of my punchline to that. And the real differentiator that I believe is what third wave AI brings to the table, in addition to all the practical applications. But it's very disruptive. It is incredibly powerful. And it is here. We're just sort of waiting for that, I think, the compute element to replace the GPU and enable this to be kind of the future of AI. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully that was interesting. Again, I'm always open to discussion and open to be even proven wrong on stuff. I love discussing technology with people, and love to answer any questions as well.
That was fascinating. My head's about to blow off because you're right. We've all heard you're the artist, you're the artist. I'm going to come back to you, ask you a question about that. But Sarah, while we've got everybody, we do want to let you know that Dell actually does do things today, not just 10 years from now. And just tell them the special offer they can get is because they've tuned in today.
Yeah, of course. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. But I just wanted to introduce myself. I work alongside Marilyn and Michael and manage the partnership between RE Technology and Dell Technologies. So our program is designed to serve RE Technology readers and provide numerous benefits that I want to make sure you guys are all aware of so you can take advantage of them. The biggest one is being member savings. So this is exclusive stackable discounts up to 10% on our technology solutions, as well as seasonal promotions that we send out. So just keep an eye out for all of that. But we also offer support from an advisor, as well as financing options and complimentary on-site IT environment consultations. So if you have questions about any of that, want to take advantage of any of it, please reach out to me. Let me know. I'd love to help set you up with an advisor and make sure you have access to those discounts. But
Where should they reach out to you, Sarah? Maybe we can put it in the.
Yeah, I can put my email in the chat and you guys can just reach out to me directly. So yeah, I'll go ahead and do
that in the somebody just asked me if there's going to be a recording of this. I was like, absolutely. We don't want to lose this. This is great. So I'm going to ask you a tough one, Bronze. Well, maybe not a tough one. You've done a lot of speaking, probably not. So not unlike the artists in Hollywood that were looking for reassurance that the computer age is not going to take their jobs. Real estate agents have a very similar concern, right? That it's a very high touch industry right now. They don't don't create art in that way, but they create art in terms of relationships with people. They use a lot of judgment about, a customer tells them they're looking for a particular type of thing, and they use their own computing capabilities to find the right house for them, and process all of the transaction in terms of the paperwork and things like that, all the legal documentation, and think through what might not be 100% black and white, but things that are nuanced to that particular application or that particular transaction, right? So tell us why the third wave of AI is not going to take away real estate agents, or is it?
Well, yeah, so first off, I do want to reiterate that this is still a ways out. So, we are currently living in the age of the neural nets and things like ChatGPT and generative AI, which really are co-pilots. They really are helper tools. They really are things that can help maybe improve an offering or something that you're writing, or analysis that you're doing. But you still are the creative one, the intelligent one. You still have to, you have to really proofread these things because they're notorious for errors. So humans are paramount to be in the loop, and they still are going to be the ones driving everything. This really is a helper tool. And I think you're going to find it converging more and more as people kind of realize how they can and can't use it. It really is a neat tool to help you. The transition probably is not going to be a stark, sharp change. It's going to be sort of a gradual, graceful transition. And so I think that also as these this paradigm shift occurs, I think you'll start seeing a very similar dialogue appear, and you'll probably start finding these niche areas where it's helpful and it's not. AI is not the end result. And even third wave, it's not a human. It is an analysis tool that adds this kind of creativity capability. I mean, just imagine a car that is able to identify stuff that's driving. What a great improvement. Even if it's never seen a situation before, it can adapt. That is a necessary component just to make driving cars, cars drive better. But that doesn't, stop people from getting in cars, or, it's technology to help us. So I don't think there's going to be a worry of it affecting the real estate market. And real estate market is still about the people. It's about the face-to-face and the clients and that personal aspect, which AI doesn't have.
So there's a tactical question here that might be a little bit closer into reality. Many, especially top producing real estate agents, have virtual assistants. So they have people that sort of handle more of the administrative side of their business, so they can be the people side of their business. Do you envision a time when a virtual assistant could be completely automated and could handle, completing paperwork, checking to make sure everything's accurate on it, maybe, updating CRM systems, things like that?
Not completely. I could see it potentially reducing the workload for some humans, but we actually had a challenge like that at Dell, where we had like 10 million papers that need to be processed every year. And they built an AI system to actually do the character recognition and actually categorize these. Now, because it's statistically based, it had the traditional error rate of like 10%. So, what happened was essentially, and because these are black boxes, we weren't able to identify that 10%. So you still needed that human to sort of be able to say, well, these ones are high likely correct. These are kind of borderline, and we better still have humans come in. So it helped reduce the workload on some of it, but you still needed to have the human at the end of the day, because statistical methodologies, neural nets are all based on statistics. There's never a 0% error rate. So you just have to always have a human there to make the final choice and to oversee these things and make sure they don't drift and move away from it. So no, but it could help out. It could help reduce some of the mundane,
So
but obviously full autonomy.
Doesn't know how to follow the NAR code of ethics, as an example, which is part of our driving Bible. So I know that you're not a real estate expert. You are much smarter than the rest of us that are in real estate.
No.
But tell us about, from your perspective, even as a consumer, I'm guessing you've probably bought a house or two in your life. Where do you envision third wave might help the real estate industry at some point, provide a better consumer experience?
Well, that's actually a fantastic that's a fantastic question. And again, I'm just shooting from the hip here, because I don't think about this every day. One of the things that I could imagine is more data being ingested to produce sort of finer subtleties about a region.
Hmm.
You know, like I think I was talking to you about Twitter and the dialogue that's going on that's geofenced to the different regions. What does that tell you about that particular neighborhood? Those are things that a human can't do very well. And third wave AI has the ability to ingest that level of data and pull out these fine changes and subtleties. So I could imagine there being some analysis that's taking into account these trends, taking into account the data that's out there at just a more global level than is currently available, and provide extra insights in terms of what you could do today.
So it might make a real estate agent have a lot more data to provide a much more well-informed
Insights.
recommendation, but it wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily be able to provide the service support counsel. It couldn't listen to you when they were driving in the car and your client had a bad day and you were the counselor. Can't do all of those things, but it could potentially
No.
inform what you're telling them in a much more granular way than maybe we have today.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, one of the things you might have heard of with current AI is it's this thing called RAG, a type of AI where you actually take things like ChatGPT as a wrapper, which does the language well, but then you actually make sure that your model that's used for all the intelligence is only confined to your business, so real estate. So that makes it such that you can have all the information that's important to the real estate, but then it's wrapped in a nice English wrapper or whatever language ChatGPT you ask of it, and it gives it a much more maybe professional or personable insight wrapped around the core information intelligence that came out of your smaller model.
Gotcha. Interesting. And I think you kind of answered this question, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you have any estimate on when you think, the third wave is really going to start to really hit? I know you said there's not a chip available yet. So are you hearing any of the inside edge on whether Intel's about to launch one, or is there something
Yeah,
coming?
they're all working on it. Even NVIDIA has a new chip that they've been pushing on now for about a year that is promising, but it's still very costly. And so nothing is converged. So I mean, I would say it's still in that 5-year range before it sort of hits mainstream, and then just the adoption rate on top of that will be a couple years. So you're still in that probably 5 to 10-year range before you really see this as the dominant force, but you'll see one-offs appearing more and more and more as we go forward.
Interesting. It's interesting that you said, that data won't be as important, because we've all been trained to know that data is the future, is the new gold, right? Or is the new platinum. And I'm hearing you say is it potentially could be devalued, not devalued, maybe
Absolutely.
that's an overstatement, but it won't be as the center of where valuations come from as much as it is today, eventually.
Absolutely. Yeah, the way to think about it is, the human brain has a fixed number of things it can do, and you think of each of those as a model.
Mm-hmm.
So in the future, it's really going to be all these models that are traded and moved around, not the data. So it becomes a model-based future where the best models just get adopted by everybody, combined with other models, and that's just kind of how humans learn. We're able to quickly use all these different models in our brain and put them out there. We don't basically go gather new data and train up new models every single time we want to do something. So it's a move away from data-driven world to a model-driven world.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. It's really interesting. So maybe if I can pull you back down, let's go back to second wave, because that's where we're all living right now. Any advice I know we have tech companies on here, we have developers and CTOs from brokerages on here. Any advice you have for them in terms of how to really take advantage of the power that we do have currently with second wave? Any suggestions on that?
Well, the nice thing is more and more these big companies out there are they're trying to create the citizen developer. So the tools that are being developed, even the hyperscalers like Microsoft and Google and Amazon, their tools are really easy to use. So you can actually go take online classes with them for free, and they'll walk you through the steps of how to start building a model if you want to learn, and you don't need to have the complex mathematics to be able to do it. Also, just playing to me with ChatGPT, just like literally use it. You'll be able to find out what it can and can't do. And an example that I'll use is a lot of people for a while were saying ChatGPT could write software. It was going to replace all the software developers. And what they found after people played with enough is, yes, it writes software, but it doesn't write good software or correct software. It writes software, yes. And so what happened though is people realized it's ChatGPT is more of a stylizer. It's the style of language, it's the style of code, it's the style of an essay, it's the style of a bibliography, it's the style. It's stylized stuff. So the framework for software, it can put together an entire architectural framework for how to write a piece of code, but you still have to go in and write the individual lines of code. So just playing with it enough, the industry kind of self-realized what it could and couldn't do and found those boundaries. And now the software industry is not quite as afraid of ChatGPT, and they more have embraced it as a tool which can help them with certain things, but not others. So it's going to take your industry playing with it, utilizing it, and finding where it is and doesn't work, because that's something I'm not going to know because I'm not in your industry.
It's very interesting because I remember being at a conference not a year ago, probably 10 months ago, and talking to a company that had software saying, oh yeah, we're going to get there so much faster because we're using AI to build it. And so that was 10 months ago. That was the current perspective. And now you're telling me, not going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's again, it's a great helper tool, but it's not going to write code. It's too error prone.
Well, for
Yeah,
those
actually, just an example, I was at the San Diego Supercomputer Center, just some of those examples is they wrote, tell me all about feline dyslexia. And boy, it wrote a nice essay about cats that, have feline dyslexia. Well, there's no such thing as feline dyslexia, but it just put stuff together and it created but the framework of the essay was wonderful. The content was silly. I even wrote, my daughter, she was a member of a charity organization, and she graduated last year. I was asked to give a speech, and I decided to use ChatGPT to write my speech. And it became a funny speech because I would say things like, there aren't enough words to describe how proud I am. And ChatGPT wrote the speech and said, I have nothing more to say to you. It turned those things in. I said, you are the bomb. And it said, you remind me of Hiroshima, a destroyer of worlds. So the content was ridiculous, but the whole organization and the way that it flowed created a really nice framework. And it really helped me write the speech that I wanted to say with my words instead of ChatGPT. So again, but it takes playing with it, and it takes your application, your industry to find those boundaries.
I love it. As someone has a child graduating as a copywriter in about 4 months after $300,000 of bills, I'm really glad to hear you say these things. I'm encouraged that there is hope here. Well, this
Absolutely.
is wonderful. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We've gotten some terrific feedback from actually many of the best and brightest that I know in our industry. So I really, really appreciate your time. And we'd love to hear from you again. So let's make you a regular on RE Technology. This was wonderful.
No, I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone that attended today. If you do have any questions, let me put let's see where Sarah's email is here, Sarah_Neuert@Dell.com if you have any questions. And if you don't get that, just send it over to us and we'll get it over to her too. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And you got me thinking. I know that I'm sure many others on the call. So wonderful.